My father demanded I attend my golden brother's wedding, threatening to cut my tuition. They were shocked when I revealed I earned more than him. My father has always treated me as the child in the family that is overlooked. He was simply infatuated with my brother. He continues. You know what? I don't care if you got accepted to some prestigious college. You have to go to the local college because we don't want your brother to be jealous of you. So, you know what, guys? I pretended everything was fine. I replied, you know what, Dad? Okay, fine. I'll go to that college on one condition: I get to stay in the dorms. So, I lied to him. I pretended to reside in the dorms and attended the prestigious college on a scholarship he was unaware of. But when he finds out, he will erupt. What would you do if the people who had hardly noticed your presence for 3 years suddenly asked you to show up and act like a family member for one day? That would be a very hard scenario, right? I mean, it's always going to be like that with family, especially my own. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Jonas, and if you haven't figured by now, my family is quite dysfunctional. I mean it. That is, if it can even be considered a family. What do you name the individuals who gave birth to you but then abandoned you when they discovered a better version of you? Can that even be considered family? Instead than going in circles, let me state it clearly. I could have had a happy family if my parents had treated both of their children equally. But, no, my parents are a bunch of biased jerks who have been treating me as background noise for as long as I can remember, all because my brother Roman was the healthier kid. I mean, Roman was one of those healthy, adorable infants who drew everyone's attention in an instant, whereas I was the scrawny, average-looking one that no one wanted to hold. But should these things influence parents so profoundly that they begin to differentiate between their children? It shouldn't, right? But it was different for my parents, Patrick and Marin. Within a month of Roman's birth, he had become their golden kid, the infant who received universal adulation. I mean, he wasn't outstanding. He was merely the more attractive one, the main character, so everyone was drawn to him, whilst I was usually the supporting character, standing in the background, forgotten. You can imagine how dreadful my childhood must have been. My parents ignored me and just provided for my basic needs, while my egotistical brother let all of the attention get to him. Roman grew up as a pampered brat who only cared about himself. So you can picture the kind of relationship we had. I was the shy, introverted kid, and Roman turned out to be a huge fat bully. Could you imagine that? Are you being bullied by your little brother? Yeah, that was the case with me. Roman seemed to have made it his life's mission to make mine unhappy, whether by throwing wild tantrums that caused my parents to spoil my plans or by physically taking away the things I liked. Is this correct? It was a poor scenario in and of itself. Add a set of biased parents to the mix, and you can understand how terrible my upbringing was. My parents were the main reason Roman grew up to be such a brat. While Roman was showered with new toys, attention, and praise, I was never spoiled. My birthdays were a formality. My accomplishments were never particularly significant, and my job in the family was essentially that of a background prop. One time in 3rd grade, I had all A's on my report card. I was thrilled, you know? I figured maybe I'd get a pat on the back or something, but when I presented it to my mother, all she said was, "That's good," as she went on to rave about what a nice little painting Roman had done that we just had to put on the refrigerator. Yes, Roman's wonky dog drawing received center stage, while my straight-A report card was placed into the garbage drawer with the other forgotten papers. So you know how things were. I felt like the neglected report card, while my brother was lauded for everything. But it wasn't just the small stuff. Oh no. Roman got to decide where we went on family trips, what we ate for dinner, and what we watched on television. Every time I attempted to select something, I was turned down. And that idiot Roman rubbed it in my face to the fullest extent possible. He was the king, and I was nothing more than his servant. So I guess you can see why I wanted to flee this hellhole as soon as I could. And I even had the perfect opportunity. I was looking to pursue a bachelor's degree and was awarded a scholarship to one of the world's finest institutions. It was a very prestigious college, the kind that assures a good career for its students. Getting a scholarship there? Oh, that is a dream. But here's the catch. It was many states away. And, like everything else in my life, my parents refused to let me have it. Click share and more to check if there is a part 2. Part 2. Do you want to discover the reason? Of course it was Roman. My parents even suggested that I attend the local institution in our state because it provided a greater opportunity and option. They reasoned that since Roman, who was not particularly bright academically, could feel bad that I had the opportunity to enroll at such a prominent college while he did not, I should stay local. What was stopping him? He could have worked his buttocks off, like I did, and received what he desired. However, none of this made sense to my parents. They told me I needed to go to the local college. You see how ludicrous this whole situation was? Somewhere in my mind, I assumed they were doing this to keep me from outshining Roman. It was as if they recognized my potential but consciously chose to disregard it. It's as if providing me with genuine support would jeopardize Roman's image as the golden child. Why else would they work so hard for me to stay at the local college while Roman, who was nothing near as ambitious, received unrivaled support? It seemed as if I was not meant to be more successful than him. That was not part of their script. But did I succumb to that foolishness? No. I'd already made significant sacrifices to keep up with the family's wacky, biased antics. But I decided I'd had enough. I told my parents that I would only attend the local college if they permitted me to live in the campus dorms. My parents agreed, a little too happily, thinking they'd persuaded me to stay at the local college. But did they actually? No chance in hell. I accepted the scholarship and relocated to another state while my parents thought I was attending a nearby college. The nicest aspect was that the prominent college I was admitted to offered the finance course I desired in just 2 years, whereas the local college required 4. So that was ideal since it meant I could graduate earlier than my parents had imagined. Honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made. Not only did I leave the hellhole my parents had created, but this college represented the pinnacle of prosperity. I say this because, shortly after graduating, I was offered a 6-figure salary and have been with the company for a year. Things are actually improving for me, since I am on the verge of receiving a promotion. I did it all. The scholarship covered 70% of the fees, and I utilized the money my father contributed to meet other expenses. Now I'm having a fantastic life. My father continues to send me money, believing that I am a student at the local college. And I have not told him to stop. I know it's kind of terrible, but I consider it retribution for the last 3 years. I've had limited communication with my relatives. There were a few checkup calls here and there, as well as 1 or 2 trips to my home over the holidays, to keep them from becoming suspicious. Aside from that, they haven't troubled me too much, and I've been able to avoid them by explaining that I've been busy with my studies. They don't seem to care anyway. I mean, why should they? They had a golden child now. My parents benefited from the fact that the only person they had to care for was no longer in their lives. I was truly satisfied with the setup. It did hurt from time to time that my folks didn't notice I had moved states away. But the melancholy was offset by the relief of not having their toxic presence around me. Truth be told, I did miss having a family. Not a dysfunctional one like mine, but rather the feeling of having a family who genuinely cared about me. Despite my friends and pleasures, I felt that something was lacking in my life. However, until this morning, it appeared difficult to correct. My father called today to tell me that Roman was getting married and that he needed me there a few days before the wedding to help with the preparations. I was taken aback. Was my father truly urging me to come home? I had been looking forward to this moment for a long time, especially since he told me I was part of the family and that he wanted everyone to be present for Roman's big day. I truly became emotional. My parents had never acknowledged me as a member of their family. They were primarily concerned with themselves and Roman. But now my father specifically wanted me to attend the wedding. It was overwhelming to receive appreciation from my parents. But then I remembered that these were the ones who had ignored me throughout my childhood. Even today, they were unaware that their eldest son lives states away. Do I really want to return to these people, only to be disregarded again, as I have been my entire life? This is where I find myself in a quandary. And I'd like to ask you all. What would you do if you were in my shoes? I miss my sense of family, and it would be wonderful to have them care about me for once. But the prospect of returning back only to have my expectations shattered again terrifies me. Should I accept their invitation and attend my brother's wedding solely for the sake of family? Or should I stick to my commitment to live far away from them and not allow them to hurt me again? Before we get into that, it's been 2 days, and I've had plenty of time to consider what I should do. In the end, I decided to keep my peace. Even though some of you may disagree with my decision, I elected not to accept my father's invitation to Roman's wedding. And honestly, it feels like the best decision I have ever made. Spoiler alert, my parents haven't changed and never will. Let me continue where I left off in my initial post. After some thinking, I texted my father, just saying that I wouldn't be able to make it. There is no lengthy explanation, no excuses. To be honest, I was not going to come. I expected some reaction, but I didn't expect the manipulation to start so early. Within an hour, my phone was flooded with text messages. First, my mother attempted to guilt trip me. She inquired if I truly wanted to miss Roman's special day. If I wanted to be that brother. And how disappointed Roman would be if I wasn't present. She went on to say how much it would mean to Roman if his older brother was there. Really? She also attempted to play the game in which you only got one family card. But here's the thing, Roman's big day meant nothing to me. Because Roman had never cared about any of my significant occasions. Not one. And yes, you only have one family. Part 3. But only if they behave appropriately, you know? So I informed my mother the same thing, I was not coming. When guilt tripping failed, my father resorted to his own bizarre tactics. He attempted to keep it calm at first, stating things like how families should stick together on situations like these. When I still didn't move, he decided to play dirty. He called and stated that if I didn't show up for Roman's wedding, they would cease paying my tuition costs. He stated they couldn't afford for people to gossip about how one of their sons wasn't present at such an important event. Essentially, they wanted to maintain the appearance of a happy family for their friends and neighbors. As is customary, everything revolved around appearances. Not about me. Not about Roman. But what about how the family was perceived by others? That's when I really lost it. I mean, how selfish could somebody be? Threatening to cease paying my education expenses just so I may attend a wedding. It was incredibly foolish. Even more so given that I didn't care about any of the money they handed me. I responded by telling my dad, "Go ahead. Stop paying the college fees. I'm not coming to the wedding and nothing you say or threaten will change that." I still hadn't told them that I had graduated a year ago and was living states away with a 6-figure salary and a life they could never have provided me. I didn't want them to know how good my life was or where I was because they would ruin everything that was going well. I know I have to tell them the truth, and I will do so shortly. But right now, I was having fun. My unwillingness to attend my brother's wedding, despite my father's warnings, enraged him. He spoke about how ungrateful I was. How I've always been difficult. And how Dad planned to withdraw my name from the local college to teach me a lesson. He said it as if it were a huge threat, as if being pulled from a place I'd never even been to would destroy me. He had no idea that the truth was just the opposite. Honestly, I couldn't stop laughing. I could have told him I had never attended the local college, but where's the fun in that, guys? So now I'm simply waiting for my father to go and try to withdraw my name from a college where I was never enrolled. I'm honestly waiting for his reaction when he discovers I no longer need him or his money. That's going to be shocking. And it's only a matter of time before my phone calls with another round of obscenities. I honestly cannot wait. Anyway, I'll keep you all posted on what happens. Until then, so long. Hello, it's Jonas again. I know it's only been a day since my last update, but the never-ending drama in my life has gotten even wilder. After my last post, I had a feeling my father would take my unwillingness to attend Roman's wedding seriously. It turns out I was correct. It all began with a phone call from him this morning, and he was furious. He was irate and wasted no time in asking me where I'd been all this time and what the heck I'd been doing with all the money he provided for my college expenses. It was like witnessing a toddler throw a tantrum because he did not get his favorite toy. Only this time, it was my father who was driven insane by the happenings around him. Apparently, after our last chat, my father went to the local college. Yes, this is when things become really fascinating. He went there to withdraw my name, simply to teach me a lesson. That guy was so crazy that he thought pulling my name from college and suspending my studies would force me to attend Roman's wedding. Clearly, he was wrong. So, obviously, when my father went to the local college, he was in for a huge surprise. The local college had no record of my enrollment. It must have been quite the spectacle. My father stood there, attempting to cancel my registration when Jonas was not present at college. I bet the revelation hit him like a blow to the belly. During our call, his bitterness over his momentary humiliation at college was evident. He wanted to know where I had been for the past 3 months and what I had been doing with all that money. But, honestly, the situation was so absurd that I couldn't stop laughing. After more harsh remarks from my father and some waiting on my part, I decided to tell him the whole truth. I told him that I had graduated on a scholarship a year ago and that the money he had been giving for my college tuition had been extremely helpful. Then I dropped the larger bomb. I informed him that I now had a 6-figure salary and was making more than him. When he inquired whether I was kidding, I could tell he was disappointed. But he realized it wasn't a joke. The fact that I was no longer the struggling student he thought I was, but rather an independent man with a fulfilling life, must have been a difficult pill for him to swallow. I was ready for whatever came next. As soon as my father understood what I had just said, he erupted, accusing me of treason for keeping them in the dark. He went on about how much he had done for me, only to be confronted with this betrayal. Done so much for me? Was he talking about how he and my mother ignored me for years to focus on their favored child? Then he came up with the most ridiculous idea imaginable. He said the only way he could forgive me was if I went to Roman's wedding and made sure there was no scandal or gossip about the family. I could not believe it. This individual was still primarily concerned with his image. I don't understand why he's suddenly fascinated with the family's image. It had never disturbed him before. Anyway, I told him I didn't need his forgiveness, and I certainly didn't want to be a part of their ruse, pretending we were all one happy family. My father, still upset, tried to persuade me to attend the wedding. He appeared frantic at this point, but I held my ground. I told him there was no way in hell I'd go to the wedding of the man who devastated my childhood. Not only that, but I informed him I was done with the drama and would cut them off. My father was shocked, but I did not remain silent. I had spent my entire childhood absorbing everything silently. But not anymore. I told him I didn't want any of them to contact me again and that they could attend their golden son's wedding without me while I enjoyed my life. My father attempted to influence me emotionally again. But this time, I wouldn't have it. Talking about how I was his kid and how I needed to attend my brother's wedding. But I was finished. I just informed him that he had only one son since he was the one they all appeared to care about, and that they could keep it that way. As I gladly cut them off, I didn't even give my father another time to respond. I quickly ended the call and blocked his phone. And here is where I am right now, officially cut off from my family's harmful presence. It's a bittersweet feeling because I never imagined things coming to this. But I am also somewhat satisfied since I know it had to be done. At least now I can live a calm life. And if all goes well, maybe I'll be able to start my own family one day. So it's been more than a month since I shut off communication with my family. I thought I was above all the drama and manipulation. But they clearly couldn't let things go so simply. A few days ago, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. It was my mother, and she was sobbing uncontrollably. I had banned all of their calls, so I was surprised to receive this one. I decided not to hang up on her because I suspected something horrible had happened. But it was nothing like that. She began telling me how much she misses me and how she simply wants her kid back. She stated she didn't care what I or Dad did. None of it mattered to her. She simply wanted me to be a member of the family again. I was perplexed. I mean, where was this energy previously? When I told them I was cutting them off, they didn't seem to mind. And now my mother wants to patch things up? Don't you think that was a bit suspicious? So I just hung up on her, telling her I'd call her later. I had a sense something wasn't right, so I contacted my aunt, my mother's sister, to see if she had any ideas. What she told me was bizarre and it verified all of my suspicions. Apparently, Roman's wedding was a complete fiasco. A massive shitstorm. His seemingly beautiful fiancée turned out to be a full-fledged fraudster. Before the wedding, she persuaded Roman, my parents, and a group of family members to put all of their savings into a dodgy, once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. And guess what? It was all a hoax. She took the money and dipped. There were no weddings. She's gone, as are my family's savings. However, it wasn't the end of it. My aunt also informed me that my parents were in even more serious difficulty than I had suspected. Apparently, my father provoked a disturbance with an employee and his family, resulting in a significant loss for his already dying firm. And then everything clicked for me. This is why he was so eager to invite me to the wedding. He wanted to salvage his image by demonstrating how much he treasured his perfect family, and all those values. But of course, that did not work. This fiasco between Roman and his fiancée just added to the negative news. So, basically, they are losing money left and right. To make matters worse, they used their house as collateral for a loan in an attempt to salvage the firm. However, this also backfired on them. And now they are likely to lose their home. They had to move into a dilapidated trailer or studio apartment because that's all they could afford. Now everything was plain to me. My mother didn't call because she missed me or wanted me back. They urgently needed me. They realized I was doing well for myself and wanted to use me as a safety net. I understood everything. They were out of options, and I was their only hope. So, I wasn't playing that game. I was not going to be dragged back into their mess, especially now that I had seen the whole picture. They didn't care about me because they were too busy catering to Roman and his needs. But here's the catch. My parents are now fighting with Roman because they blame him for everything. For the entire wedding fiasco. For all the money they've lost, it's actually pretty funny. The golden child they built their lives around has ruined everything. And, to be honest, it made me happy that they were finally realizing their mistakes. Anyway, I could care less. I'm staying out of the controversy. After my mother called, I blocked her again. I wasn't going to let her control my emotions. But did this prevent my parents from reaching out? No, absolutely not. They were needy and clingy, refusing to accept that things weren't going their way. My parents eventually showed up at my house. Do not ask me how. I'm not sure how they got the address, but I believe they badgered some of my old friends for information. However, the how does not matter. What matters is that they showed up at my door, reminding me of family values, and that, as their older son, I was their responsibility. And now, somehow, they were mine. I slammed the door in their faces, of course. They begged me to help them, claiming they were penniless and had spent their last money on a flight to meet me. That sucked for them, but I wasn't going to help. This is not the end of it. A few days later, Roman arrived at my home, practically crying and pleading for help. He stated that he missed having his big brother in his life. I'm not sure what big brother he's referring to because all I remember is him bullying me. I warned him, but he kept begging, saying mom and dad were going to cut him off shortly because they were angry with him for putting them into this problem. It was all for nothing. Roman shared the same fate as my parents. I locked the door in his face, warning him that if any of them returned, I'd call the cops. Since then, I haven't heard from any of them, and I honestly don't care. I am done with this toxic family. I'm a little sad that things with my family have come to this. Because the void they created will always be present in my life. But I'm not going to take their trash anymore, just for the sake of family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My golden brother hired a private investigator to expose me as a failure, but instead, he uncovered my multi-million-dollar success. I was raised in a quaint little village with my two siblings. The middle sibling is me. The fact that everyone there knows one another can be both a strength and a weakness. My father is the kind of man who puts in a lot of work but keeps his emotions to himself. He is now thinking about retiring. My mother is the total opposite of him. She has consistently maintained the house and upheld the traditional ideals she was taught growing up. My parents are both from traditional, religious families. They are my parents, and I love them, but I've always felt that I didn't live up to their standards. The fact that they appear to view me as the family's disappointment hurts. In contrast, my older brother is the family's golden boy. At 40, he settled down and married a calm, reticent woman. Their two sons have a strong interest in sports, particularly rough and tumble sports. To put it mildly, they're a pain. My brother appears to feel it is his duty to guide me in life. He works as a car salesperson at a local dealership. His mentorship, however, feels more like him treating me like a project he can't manage, as if I'm always in need of assistance and should be appreciative of any time he spends with me. He presents a picture of a wonderful existence, talking about his athletic children, his powerboat, and his ATVs, but his counsel frequently comes off as boasting about his big house, fancy cars, and his so-called trophy wife. I feel even more alone as a result of this. I was the sensitive child at school who frequently broke down in tears and appeared to always find an excuse for why things didn't go as planned. I wasn't a strong, tough child or athletic. As an alternative, I was made fun of and kept out of most activities. Having asthma made me feel even more alienated. The worst thing? Asthma is not considered a significant medical problem by my parents. Furthermore, I have battled depression for as long as I can remember. I was never the kind of child who could run down a field or throw a football straight. My parents frequently made remarks about how I wasn't as intelligent or gregarious as my older brother and frequently made comparisons between us. School was challenging. I had a poor 2.5 GPA when I graduated from high school. After saving up some cash, I enrolled in college, but I left in my second year. A family controversy resulted from such choice. In a sense, my younger sister was the princess of the family. I don't know much about her because I left when she was a teenager. The main reason I feel this way about her is because I have seen her as an adult. She is not a horrible person and is merely a little overindulged, but, maybe because it's simpler than being the target herself, she frequently treats me the same way my parents and brother do. She had a beautiful wedding, was married when she was 19, and has 3 kids now. I can best identify with her middle child. I guess I see a little of myself in her because she's also the middle child. She gets mocked a lot, and maybe because her problems are similar to mine, I feel like I know her better. After I graduated from college, I really began to embrace my shy, nerdy side. Before it closed more than 7 years ago, I worked at a comic book and video game store in my community, which I really enjoyed. Even though I have moved on, my parents still behave as though I work there. The best part of my position at the store was getting to know another geek with huge ambitions. We co-founded a successful IT support business together. My business partner ultimately made the decision to sell our company to a bigger corporation. I was bought out with cash and stock options as part of the deal, and it worked out rather well. I started a few side projects and made a number of wise investments, several of which were quite profitable. I try not to brag, but I have more than $1 million in assets. I currently work for a brand new private startup as its CTO. Even though I'm wealthy, I live a humble life. All of the furnishings in my comfortable 2-bedroom house in a fantastic area is used, and I drive a 15-year-old Saturn. Right now, I'm not in a relationship. I have a hectic life and see my therapist on a regular basis. Like my melancholy and asthma, I deal with drinking, which is difficult because my parents don't take it seriously. They believe it to be wholly mental. Even if it's not what other people anticipate or comprehend, I've been able to carve out a prosperous career for myself in spite of the ups and downs. My parents expect me to join them for supper every Sunday night. They live on the opposite side of the state, so the travel is not quick. It takes 90 to 120 minutes each way, which eats up over half of my weekend. They still seem to think that, as an unmarried individual and what my brother likes to refer to as a mental case, I have nothing better to do. These meals are frequently difficult. I get unsolicited advice on how to marry, establish a family, and be a proper adult for 3 hours. Or I sit through lengthy conversation about my brother's most recent huge sale at the car dealership, which is the buzz of the table. Although they have never called me a mooch directly, the implication is there if I skip one of these dinners. It is both frustrating and perplexing. I frequently question why I still go to these events when I talk to my therapist. My family has a tendency to downplay or misrepresent all of my accomplishments. People back home still think I work at the long-gone game store. My brother was seen as more mature and gregarious than I was, and he had a successful profession. As a result, I was continuously made fun of for my prior retail experience. I found it challenging to communicate to my family back home the truth about my life and my achievements because of this disparity. Games and comics were sometimes written off as immature entertainment. Despite my genuine expertise in technology, my attempts to discuss it were typically overshadowed. My brother would interrupt me and pretend as if I didn't know anything. Even though I knew he was babbling, I typically just listened to him. I was scared to correct him since I would have to explain my work and defend my knowledge. I secretly scared that they wouldn't value my career and that it would alter their opinion of me. I'll confess that I've had difficulties and occasionally been a complete mess. However, everything changed last month. My brother managed to get his hands on some of my personal information. The truth is that he employed a private investigator to carry out what he said was a background check on my employment. I had a sneaking suspicion that he was organizing an intervention with my folks. They were totally unprepared for what they discovered. They learned my actual value as a person, that I didn't live in a rundown flat, and other private information. Since I work in security, this was very ironic. After making the connections, I was even able to track out the source of the hack by receiving notifications about unauthorized efforts to get my credit report. Everything became clear after this revelation, and I now have to deal with my family's abrupt and unanticipated change in how they view me. It's a lot to take in, particularly in light of our relationship's history of miscommunication and undervaluation. I chose to have the same private detective firm look into my brother's money since I was so upset over the breach of my privacy. My brother was actually living well beyond his means. A file with Child Protective Services, several previous arrests for DWI and public intoxication, and domestic disturbance calls were also discovered throughout the investigation. He was having trouble making his scheduled back payments to the IRS and managing 3 mortgage loans on his house. Despite the fact that there were currently no ongoing charges, his credit was a total mess. In contrast, my parents had little more than what I already knew and lived modest lifestyles. When it came to money, they were realistic and pragmatic. I was so concentrated on getting ready to confront my family at the next meal, hoping it would cause a rift, that I didn't even care to see how my sister was doing. But the dinner's atmosphere was completely different from what I had imagined. My parents started to treat me with a strange sort of veneration, as if I were the golden child. This adjustment obviously distressed my brother. He lost his anger midway through dinner. In an attempt to restore his reputation, he began boasting about recent sales commissions and a purported promotion. I just gave him my congratulations and mentioned his debt, IRS problems, and stretched credit condition in a tactful manner. In other words, I called attention to my brother's financial disaster while simultaneously celebrating his accomplishments. The whole thing was oddly gloomy. The already challenging family dynamic was made even more awkward by my parents' sudden change in behavior toward me, which appeared forced and artificial. At first, my brother disputed everything when I handed him a copy of the report. but I pointed out that by utilizing the agency to look into me, he had inadvertently suggested it. As I have to say, that felt good for a little while. My parents, who reprimanded him and responded with dramatic shock, were obviously aware of it as well. The whole thing became very unsettling because the report needed my social security number. It was not a pleasant revelation or the ensuing argument. As it revealed my family's avarice and cowardice, my disdain for them grew. They started accusing one another of a variety of things throughout the course of the following hour. I made every effort to keep quiet, but sometimes they became irate with me. I would either shrug or respond with a nonchalant, one-word comment when that occurred. My sister's husband, my brother's wife, and their 5 kids looked on in shock as our family disintegrated like never before. Our meetings were typically routine and uninteresting. My sister would give updates whenever she could, my brother and his wife would boast about their lives, my mom would strike up a conversation, and my dad would complain in response. This collapse had never occurred during one of our family dinners. It was a tumultuous meal, to say the least. As long-simmering, deeply ingrained issues exploded into the open, the customary subtle jabs about how I should look up to my brother and be a real man were replaced by astonished quiet. I got into a heated disagreement with my dad, brother, and myself. They dug up every relic of family strife from the previous 30 years and argued over who was responsible for everything. It was like watching an unruly drama play out in real time. All of my negative thoughts about my family seemed to be validated during such instances. In all honesty, I felt terrible, even though you might have expected me to feel some sort of justice or triumph. I became aware of my poor handling of the situation. Although I was well aware of these flaws, what had I meant to accomplish by making my brother's wrongdoings public? His children now know about his tumultuous history, which I had not wanted them to. When my brother yelled at me in a fit of wrath, the situation reached a breaking point. His harsh statements, such as, "You should have never been born," were stunning, but what really stuck out was my parents' desperate attempts to calm him down, a degree of desperation I had never witnessed before. He accused me of being the cause of all the family's problems. They made an effort to intervene, but they never really admitted or accepted responsibility for the way they had treated me throughout the years. I was both very saddened and vindicated. It served as a harsh and obvious reminder of the underlying problems in our family's dynamics. My parents accused me of something else until I could take it no more. They implied that I could have helped but decided not to, claiming that I was refusing to help a sick niece or nephew. I had no knowledge of such a circumstance. No one had ever told me about this issue or reached out to me for help. I suspected they were making things up as they went along, but I didn't challenge it. "I thought you believed I was still working at the comic book shop," I reminded them instead. They never seemed to understand that the store had closed in 2011, even though I had reminded them several times. The way they had misrepresented our family history to fit their storyline appalled me. I drove home after feeling overburdened and annoyed. I'm feeling conflicted right now. Knowing that they would probably put pressure on me to repay them now that they are aware of my money makes me feel deceived. I know what's coming because I've witnessed how they treated my brother in a similar manner. However, I also recognize and value the fact that my parents provided for my basic needs as a child, including clothing, food, and housing. It will be difficult to navigate this labyrinth of thankfulness, bitterness, and freshly set boundaries. I'll probably need my therapist's assistance to process this change in dynamics. It's obvious that establishing clear limits going forward will be essential. Growing up was challenging because, to be honest, I was never the favorite child in my family. My brother mistreated me, but my parents did little to stop it, even though they never physically beat me. My parents responded as though nothing was wrong whether he kicked, hit, or said extremely terrible things. They completely disregarded it. It is really concerning that they do not consider verbal abuse to be damaging or real. Verbal abuse is terrible in and of itself, but it is even more painful when the people who are there to protect you choose to ignore it. I've had enough of fighting this for years. Even though I am aware that they are my family, I feel the need to keep a permanent distance. Although I wish them well, I think it will be better for me to go on and begin a new chapter without them. If I discover someone amazing, like a girlfriend, and we decide to be married and have kids, what will happen? Then, how will I deal with these problems with my family? It may get rather complicated, so I'm attempting to figure it out. How can I introduce my new family to my family if I'm not talking to them anymore? I have a lot of questions about what lies ahead. Prior to reading the update, allow me to give you some advice. Your family didn't appreciate you as a person if they merely wanted you around to boost their self-esteem. They want you around to take advantage of your wealth now that they are aware of your financial achievement. You are not defined by your family. According to everything you've said, they, not you, are the issue. You come across as a good-hearted, diligent individual who endured harsh treatment in your family circumstances. Put your phone away and carry on with your life. You've done a great job creating your own life. Reduce the amount of time you spend with your family as much as you like. They only want your money, and you know it. As a result, you can communicate with them however you see fit. Stay in touch with your therapist to help you move into a life where they don't hold you back. Steer clear of pointless conversations. If at all possible, think about relocating to a new place, packing up your things, and starting over. You are not alone if you have to make tough choices because many people struggle with their families when it comes to dating. Explaining these dynamics to a potential spouse might be challenging, particularly if they have tight family ties. But you will start your own family when the time is right. Actions to take going ahead. If you haven't done, put a security freeze on your credit accounts. If your brother used dealership resources to collect information about you, let the appropriate parties know. The dealership is unlikely to be amenable to being implicated if his activities involved fraud. Speak with an attorney. Despite your youth, mishaps do occur. Your parents would currently inherit your assets as your default next of kin. Put it in writing as soon as you can if you would rather have someone else be the beneficiary. Locate a trustworthy counselor. You may feel sad about being apart from your family in the upcoming months. Speaking with an expert will assist you in processing this. Update. Following the family dinner argument, it was like leaving a battle zone when I got home. I flew across the quiet nighttime road with nothing but my thoughts. I knew that something needed to change as soon as I pulled into my driveway. If I didn't want to go insane, I had to quit throwing family dinners. I concentrated on my work and mental well-being during the course of the following 2 weeks. Not only were the gadgets and comic books strewn over my home visually appealing, but they served as a sanctuary for me. In order to figure out how to separate from my family without totally alienating them, I stepped up my therapy appointments during this period. My therapist, Dr. Bennett, was really helpful. He used methods that felt more like building a fort than a wall to help me set boundaries. My mind started to go toward the future, more especially relationships, as the weeks went by and the temperature rose. I began to think that meeting someone amazing was not just possible but likely after spending time by myself and without a partner. Then, like something from a comic book, Ava showed up. Ava and I met at a technology conference. Her cybersecurity talk captivated me, not just because of the topic but also because of her charisma. She was smart and grounded, understood me, and had a love-centered view of families that was restrained by firm boundaries. As Eva's situation worsened, the unsaid problem was how to introduce her to my family's circus. We discussed how to deal with it over numerous pizza-eating evenings. We made the decision to have short, visible, and casual family get-togethers. Everything changed when Ava even offered to help me. Our initial interactions were straightforward coffee dates. I reintroduced myself to family gatherings while Ava was around. Naturally, the first few times were really uncomfortable. My parents were too polite and wary, as though I may vanish at any moment. In contrast, my brother looked to be attempting to express a lot but was having trouble finding the perfect words. But my sister and her kids were a pleasant diversion. My sister's middle child, who looked a lot like me, was instantly won over by Ava. We became accustomed to these coffee dates, which were like short forays into family territory, a brief coming and going. I was able to reconnect without becoming entangled in the chaos thanks to this strategy. Unexpectedly, it started to function. My family adjusted to the arrangement over time. Maybe they understood that this was the only way they could continue to have me in their life. They began to be mindful of my limits. As things got better, I started to consider the long term more. What might the future hold for us? Together with Ava, I envisioned building a solid family foundation based on respect and caring for one another rather than obligation and guilt. I knew there would be difficulties, of course. Ava and I talked about the prospect of living together one summer evening when we were walking by the lake. I was struck by how far I had come from feeling abandoned by my family to being able to stand on my own with a better sense of who I was. It seemed like day and night. I have a cautious sense of optimism for the future. I feel prepared, even though I know the road ahead may be rough with possible potholes the size of craters. Setting limits with my family after Eva was more than simply a matter of protecting myself. It was about making room for new connections and a fulfilling future for myself. The infamous Sunday meals are still planned, but they now take place according to my preferences. I go occasionally and don't go other times. I bring Ava along to family dinners, and we discuss any issues that arise. Even though there has been a lot of improvement, there are still issues. The secret is finding that balance, keeping things harmonious without becoming overpowered. Hi everyone, I'm still learning how to share stuff online, so please be patient with me. I want to tell you everything that's going on in my life at the moment. Let's start by introducing the main characters. I am the storyteller. Peach is our daughter, Mario is our son, and Daisy is my soon-to-be ex-wife. We are currently going through a challenging separation that is quickly turning into a very acrimonious divorce. The main reason Daisy and I are divorcing is that she accepted her bisexuality earlier this year. She expressed her desire for our marriage to be open to me directly. I was not at all comfortable with that notion. When I learned that Daisy had slept with my coworker, who is also one of my closest friends, the situation got even worse. That must have been terrible and awkward. It seemed like a betrayal from both my household and my place of employment as a police officer. We were unable to stay together after that. I took a break to think things out. Daisy did everything she could to keep us together at first. But when it became apparent that I was adamant about not opening our marriage despite her reasons and entreaties, things took a nasty turn. Daisy's perspective had changed. She became bitter, and the last thing I wanted was for her to start playing pawns with our kids. Daisy started telling Peach that she had to leave our home because I no longer loved them. I detested them, she said, and I was destroying our family. It was heartbreaking to hear that, especially in light of Peach's obvious confusion and grief. Our kids frequently visit Daisy's mother's home, where she currently resides. Daisy and her new friend attempt to make these visits seem like a huge, thrilling vacation. Presumably in an attempt to play the cool parents and turn Peach and Mario against me, they lavish them with toys and candy. In addition to our mental struggle, Daisy and I disagree on nearly everything. This involves deciding who should inherit what belongings and how much money one of us should contribute to support the other. The hardest part, though, choosing how to split up Mario and Peach's time. Daisy fights back against every compromise we try to reach. She seems to be making things more difficult for herself. Daisy has been telling our kids things lately that make me the bad guy, which is unjust. For example, Peach and Mario have been asking me whether I don't like Daisy's new friend. AP, let's call them AP, seems to adore them more than I do, for whatever reason. Such talk is a major disturbance to their minds. I was working on a big project at work a few weeks ago. I was working much more overtime in my pursuit of a promotion from police officer to homicide investigator. Daisy and I agreed that the kids would spend this busy time with her and come see me on the weekends. I would stop by when it was time for them to go for Daisy's. Mario exclaimed, tears in his eyes. Are you taking us away because you hate us like your mother says? As I handed him his luggage, a big one I had packed for him. The moment was heartbreaking. I hugged him tightly and assured him that I truly loved him, even though it wasn't true. It was strange, despite my best efforts, to visit them last weekend. It was really challenging. It hurt a lot that they didn't say much to me. They didn't seem to want to see me at all. It wasn't until today that I had another opportunity to talk to them. They both looked very sad as I lifted them up. I could now talk to them as I picked them up. It was clear that Peach is having difficulties. Even while she still shows her love for me, Daisy seems to be making it harder for her to do so. Given how difficult the situation is, I'm attempting to decide on the best course of action to reduce the harm to the kids. This kind of twisting of family dynamics can be extremely challenging. Peach is having a lot of trouble because she believes she is incapable of loving me. I can no longer watch helplessly as my princess endures pain. Since this divorce is purposefully harming them, I'm beginning to have my doubts. Do I need to take the divorce further? Is it possible to proceed while keeping my kids safe? Or should I just stay and accept it? Now for the comment. You need to tell your divorce attorney about all of this right away. Parental alienation is what this is. A judge will definitely order it to halt, but it will probably be hard to enforce. You have to get started on this right away and keep going. Daisy is acting in a way that is really damaging. Make sure you pursue the divorce and keep all the paperwork. It will only become worse if you stay. This is known as parental alienation, and it played a significant role in my friend's child custody victory because his ex-wife was acting in a similar manner. Engage a lawyer as soon as possible and record Daisy's actions. Seek the children's medical attention. This is a very bad position for them. Your kids shouldn't be left with her unattended. Tell your lawyer what she did. Inform CPS about her treatment of the kids if necessary. Never again let her actions go unchecked for the sake of your kids.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My entitled sister abandoned her 3 children, so I raised them. Years later, they offer me money as a thank you, but she demands it. Hello, I am 48F, and my younger sister, Diana, is 46F. Diana and I never got along well as youngsters. She was always snobbish and unpleasant to me, so we split up as soon as we graduated high school. I elected to continue my education, whilst she preferred to live with her boyfriend at the moment. It was lucky that her lover was wealthy, as our parents could never have afforded the rent for her to live alone. However, she made it abundantly obvious to our parents that she was unconcerned about their opinions on her life and would do whatever she wanted. So my parents never tried to stop her and instead let her go free. Diana had twin girls at 20 and a boy at 21 while living with her lover. My parents were pleased for her, but also anxious because she now had many responsibilities and no work. She was wholly dependent on her boyfriend's money to support her lifestyle. Diana never married her partner, which I believe was a mistake because she would have been entitled to alimony if they split up. They had to part ways after Diana discovered that he had been cheating on her. Thankfully, he provided the child support she was entitled to, but he chose not to be a father and signed away his parental rights. The girls were 3 years old at the time, but my nephew was only 2. After that, my sister was fully on her own and required all of the assistance she could get to maintain herself. Despite our sour relationship, I chose to assist her, primarily owing to pressure from our parents. At the time, I made a respectable living, but it wasn't enough to sustain all 4 of them. However, my parents and I gave a tiny bit of money each month, and they were able to make ends meet. She struggled for the first several months because she lacked a degree and work experience. She had to start at the bottom and work her way up, which forced her to dedicate a significant amount of time to her employment in order to grow rapidly. But this was difficult because she also had to consider her children, and she couldn't simply leave them at home. Hiring a babysitter was a possibility, but it was prohibitively expensive, so she was forced to rely on me or her friends. Our parents were also working and contributing financially to aid her, so they were unable to stay at home with the children. I was in the same predicament. She didn't have any friends who would take on the duty of minding her children while she worked because they all had their own lives and occupations. As a result, she was limited to minimum wage positions that allowed her to work flexible hours and return home quickly. This allowed her to avoid paying the babysitter to stay with her children for an extended period of time, which would have been prohibitively expensive. This condition persisted for a few years, and I believe Diana began to despise her own children because she saw them as hurdles to her success. She said that they were the only things preventing her from moving forward. I would pay her a visit on occasion, not for her sake, but for the sake of the children, to make sure they were doing well. I didn't have a nice connection with her, but I wasn't ruthless enough to let innocent children suffer because of their mother's poor decisions. So my parents and I would check on the kids on a regular basis. They were always complaining about Diana's mistreatment of them. She would chastise them for minor infractions and strike out at them simply for being children and trying to have fun. It was a dreadful existence for all of them, and I hoped I could help them by removing them from that place and keeping them with me, but I couldn't because she was the rightful parent and I had no legal authority over them. Furthermore, she received child support from her ex and was doing her best to make ends meet. I felt awful for her, but even worse for the kids. Diana started seeing other men, which made things considerably worse. Every time a relationship failed, she blamed her children. She was convinced that once her partners discovered she was a mother of 3, they would abandon their relationship with her. I believe it was because she never mentioned her children during the early stages of dating, only bringing it up after a month or 2, which appeared dishonest. I tried several times to explain this to her, but she was convinced that she was being rejected because she had children. She kept teasing them about it, reminding them of how their father had abandoned her and threatening to leave them as well if they didn't behave. The children were scared of her, and their childhood was defined by their mother's narcissism. This continued for years. Several times, I considered taking the kids and fleeing with them, but I couldn't. I could not petition for custody or denounce her because, while her actions were wrong, they did not justify taking the children away from her. So the scenario remained, and the kids were simply grateful to have me in their life. My parents were too elderly to be their pals, but I was always there for them when they needed it. They could never tell their mother about their issues, but they could always go to their aunt, which they did. Whenever they had problems with school, academics, or even Diana, they would come to me, and I appreciated their trust. It's no surprise that when they turned 18, they decided to leave their mother's house and move in with me instead. Now that they were no longer children, they could select where and with whom to live, and they chose me. Diana was clearly dissatisfied and had a lot to say. She stated she had squandered 18 years of her life raising these children, only for them to abandon her in the end. She was really unpleasant about it, telling me that if I had wanted to raise her children so badly, I should have stepped in sooner rather than taking over after the work was basically done. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't actually raised them. They had basically raised themselves because she was usually at work or out on dates with guys who eventually dumped her after discovering she had 3 children. She had no idea what her priorities should be, and it was clear why things turned out as they did. The children selected the person who had genuinely been there for them over the person who had always tortured and reprimanded them since she couldn't find anyone and was miserable in her life. It was evident that she had no idea she was harming them because she was suffering herself. However, I did not want to rub it in her face because I knew it must have been unpleasant for her, which is why she was lashing out at me. So I kept my mouth shut and that was it. After that, we didn't really communicate. Her children opted to leave her and live with me. Diana also chose to cut ties with all of us and cease speaking to anyone, including our parents. This was weird because they had done nothing to deserve it. I believe the fact that they hadn't chosen her side against me when my nieces and nephew opted to live with me irritated her, so she cut them off as well. It's been 7 years, and they're all doing well now. I don't know what Diana has been up to, but I know her children are doing well. My nephew attended medical school and is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and is now a teacher, and her twin sister has a hair shop. I assisted all of them in obtaining business loans and financed them to the best of my ability. I'm very proud of them because they've gone a long way from their previous home. They are now living apart. They only stayed with me for 4 years, and even then, it wasn't really like they were living with me because they were generally away at college and only came back on occasion. I believe they didn't want to return to Diana's home, where they didn't feel wanted. It's been 2 years since they all moved out, and I'm very thrilled for them. I never expected anything in return for what I did because I truly believed it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and no matter how bad things were between me and my sister, I could never be callous to them. I've always had a soft spot for them, especially since I've never had kids or married. It wasn't my cup of tea, but for them, I wanted to be there as a parental figure because their father wasn't around, and, well, we all know who Diana was. They needed someone, and my parents were too old for the position, so I stepped forward. That is all I did. I never anticipated anything in return, but I am grateful that they are the type of children who think I deserve a gift of appreciation for what I done. Even though I don't believe it was something that required compensation, I appreciated their gesture. About a week ago, I celebrated my 48th birthday with my friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a great time, and my nephew was kind enough to organize everything for me. Despite my desire to pay for everything, he insisted on covering the costs because he is now earning enough money to do things for me and display his appreciation. After the party, the 3 of them sat me down to talk. They told me that now that they were all financially established, they wanted to express their gratitude by collectively writing me a check. I tried to explain that it was unnecessary because I was still working and could support myself, but they insisted. They claimed it wasn't about repaying a debt. They could never repay me for what I had done for them since it wasn't about money. It was about the encouragement and faith I had provided them, which they could never fully repay. This was their humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply moved by their genuine act and wanted to share it on social media. I just wanted to thank them for everything they were doing for me. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care. I was blocked on every platform, and I assumed she wouldn't see it, so I felt it was fine. Diana had never followed up with us or inquired about her children's well-being after they had left home. Granted, it was they who broke up with her first and moved in with me, but that was her fault. The least she could have done was show interest in their lives and try to be a mother figure to them in order to make one for her faults. But, to be honest, she didn't seem to care about the loss of communication, so I figured she was all right. Anyway, following that post, I received a reply from her a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it because, as I indicated, we hadn't spoken in 6 years. However, I should have predicted that as soon as she realized her children were financially secure, she would start sniffing around like a bloodhound, trying to figure out how much money she could obtain from them. In her reply, she stated that she had seen my post and wanted to talk about her children. She recognized that she had made mistakes in the past and had not been a good mother to kids, but she felt compelled to give herself another shot. She claimed she had missed them a lot over the previous 6 years. I'm not sure how much truth there is in that statement because if she truly missed them, she could have contacted me at least once. She asked me to speak with her children and help bridge the gap between them, as they respond well to me. The timing was strange, so I ignored her message. However, when I failed to react, she called me in the evening, and I snapped. She insisted that I assist her in reconnecting with her children, but I refused. I was quite aware that she was merely pursuing their money, not because she truly cared about their well-being. If she truly regretted what she had done, she would have contacted them directly rather than talking to me. She couldn't let go of her pride and ego for a single second. She still expected her children to contact her, despite the fact that she was the one who had made a mistake. It was amazing how entitled she was. She tried to dispute with me, arguing that she wasn't pursuing their money and that it was offensive for me to suggest so. I assured her that I was not implying anything. It was so obvious. I felt appalled and repulsed by what she was doing. She then accused me of stealing everything from her, claiming that I had already stolen her children and was now stealing her riches. I informed her that I didn't need the money and was originally hesitant to accept the check, but now I was going to take it all because she didn't deserve it. Now she's crying on social media, telling everyone what I said and attempting to make me seem bad. Some of my relatives say I went too far with what I said, that I'm greedy, and that I owe her an apology, which is absurd. That is why I am here to inquire if I'm in the wrong for telling my sister that she does not deserve the money that her children have decided to give me. Update. As some responses advised, I recounted the situation with my nephews and nieces. They informed me they had heard about it from a few of relatives and had considered speaking with me but had not had the time. However, after I called them over and discussed it with them, they informed me that they believed I did the correct thing. My nephew was open about his views, stating that he had never considered of his mother as a maternal figure throughout his life. He always blamed me because she had never been there for him, and my niece agreed. He'd always been the most outspoken of the group, so it was predictable that this was all coming from him. My nieces were too emotional to speak, but he was quite angry and upset. He explained that Diana only spoke to me since she had never done the basic minimum for them. This was despite the fact that she was receiving child support from their father, and even then, she would humiliate them and make them feel horrible for merely existing, which was not their fault. They believe I did the right thing and have informed me that they will not contact their mother, regardless of what happens. They also believe that I should stand up for myself and explain my side of the story online now that Diana has decided to speak negatively about me on social media. They believe that this is the most effective approach to convey the message, therefore that's what I'll do. I'm delighted they opted to take my side in this because my parents are staying out of it and have stated that they don't want to get involved. Diana never spoke to them after her children cut her off, which I find unusual. My parents' polite approach to this problem strikes me as unusual, given that they have not communicated with Diana in the last 6 years. I was disappointed, but at least my nieces and nephew support me. Now many people have asked me why I did not petition for custody and have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother and was mistreating them. I mentioned in my piece that, while her actions were wrong, they did not constitute torture, abuse or neglect. She was constantly harsh to them and wasn't emotionally present for her children. So while I could have filed for custody, it was quite improbable that I would have gotten the children into my care. Courts typically encourage families to keep together, and in this case, they had already lost their father. Their father had abandoned them, leaving them with only their mother as a biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family to stay together. I knew that if I filed a petition against her or took legal action against Diana, she would ensure that I never saw them again. She would make certain that she took the kids far away from me. It was already improbable that I would have been able to take kids away from her and obtain full custody, so this would have put them in a dangerous situation. This is why I decided to play it safe by staying in touch with them and being available for them at all times. I'm not sure if it was the correct thing to do in the long term, but at the time, it seemed like the only option. Maybe there were other ways to deal with it, but it was all I could think of, so I did what I believed was right. It was difficult for me, and for years I debated whether I should file for custody or have kids taken away from her and rehomed, but there's no telling what might have occurred, and I figured it was better for kids to stay with their mother and maintain touch with me and my parents than risk anything in this circumstance. I hope this answers the questions most people had for me. Maybe I came across as the evil guy for what I did, but I don't care. I know the kids are doing well in their life, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there for them, therefore I don't feel guilty about anything. Update 2. It's been a week since Diana's message and I've received a lot of phone calls today from family and people who have spoken with her. They were pointing out my mistakes and scolding me. It was getting really tiresome and I was swamped with work, which is why I hadn't been able to post sooner. But today, I decided I'd had enough. After a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided to finally make a post that shared my side of the story as well as, in some ways, theirs. I don't think anyone in the family realized how much those kids had been through as children. How many taunts they had to endure every day simply because Diana opted to become pregnant early and drop everything for her boyfriend at the time. Even after that, she continued to blame others for her own actions and attempted to appear as if she was doing everything in her ability to do the best for her children. But, in actuality, she was never present for them. Since she was telling everyone that I had stolen her children from her and was now stealing a fortune from her, Now that her children were doing well financially, I felt people deserved to know the truth, not just her twisted version of events in which she was the victim rather than the person who tormented everyone. They had already judged me for a variety of reasons since they only knew her side of the story and sympathized with her. But in reality, I deserved to share my side of the story, as did her children. So I typed everything up a few hours ago and published the post. So far, she hasn't said anything to me, and the only texts I've gotten are from relatives who were judging me earlier. They have now abruptly changed their tune and are attempting to apologize for judging me too soon. But frankly, it means nothing to me. I simply wanted them to know the truth. I don't care what they think of me, but it was vital for me to speak the truth and share how Diana handled her children, which is why they are no longer in contact with her. Anyway, now that everything is finished, I am ready to move on from this. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore, and I was perfectly content for the past 6 years when she didn't contact me. I believe the same may be stated for her children as well. I don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she might have asked for it rather than pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Update 3. It's been a day since I wrote that post. Diana may have woken up today and decided to get back at me. Instead of contacting me directly, she became increasingly dramatic and began commenting on that post, attempting to make it appear as if I was lying. But it was not going to work. Obviously, as soon as she attempted to react, her children began commenting and responding to her, reminding her of particular episodes from their childhood in which she had been cruel to them. That lasted about an hour, and I didn't feel awful about it. Nobody else did, because my nephew, nieces and I were all thoroughly enjoying the process. They were utterly humiliating her, and there was no way she could get out of it since every single lie she tried to say to make me look bad was discovered. I'm glad I chose to do this on the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond as swiftly. Anyway, that lasted about an hour, and then she began deleting her comments so that no one could catch her in her falsehoods. However, it was too late because many others had already noticed what was going on in the comment section, and I believe she began to be called out for her actions by others. She started erasing her comments and backtracking on everything she said, and then she blocked me. She also blocked her children. I'm guessing it was her way of surrendering, and I'm pleased she did because she would have lost in a fight with us. We clearly have the upper hand here, morally or otherwise. I believed deleting the comments would be the end of our connection, but she chose to contact me personally as well. She messaged me, saying she hoped I was happy now that I had presented her as the monster and everyone hated her. It was very ironic coming from her, because that was exactly what she was attempting to do to me first. She initiated it, and now when I wanted to return it to her, she is unable to accept it. I don't understand why individuals attempt to dish it out when they know they can't take it in return. Just don't cause any drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results. Anyway, I disregarded that message, and that's what we're all going to do for the rest of our lives because she's no longer worth our attention. She has proven it.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.